Hello everyone, welcome to SJ's classes. This video lesson will introduce you to the English poet Alfred Lord Tennyson and would also give you a detailed analysis of his ballad, The Lady of Shallot. This poem was made into pop music by a Canadian singer, Loreena McKennitt, as this particular pop song also has been incorporated into your syllabus. I would also give you an introduction to Loreena McKennitt as part of this video lesson. Here is an introduction to Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson was an English poet. He was born on August 6, 1809 in Somersby, Lincolnshire, England, and he died on October 6, 1892 at Aldworth, Surrey, which is a county in southeastern England. He is regarded by many as the chief representative of the Victorian age in poetry. His first volume of poetry, which was titled Poems by Two Brothers, was published in 1827. The poems in this collection were written both by Tennyson and his brother Charles. His next anthology, Poems Chiefly Lyrical, was published in 1830. Some of his later popular works are Ulysses, 1833, Maud the Other, 1835, In Memoriam, 1850. Now, this is the elegy that celebrated his friend Arthur Hallam's death, and this poem made Tennyson Britain's most popular poet. If someone of you has read this poem, you will remember that it is in this poem that the famous line, "It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all," appears. So this is one of his most popular poems, In Memoriam. Some of his other poems are Ode on the Death of the Duke of Wellington, The Charge of the Light Brigade, and Idylls of the King. Now let me tell you why Alfred Tennyson is called as Alfred Lord Tennyson. In 1883, Tennyson accepted the offer of a peerage. Peerages are created by the British monarch. These are basically ranks like Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, Baron, etc. And since the monarch gave him a peerage, he came to be known as Baron Tennyson of Aldworth and Freshwater. But he was later popularly called as, addressed as, and is now remembered as Alfred Lord Tennyson because the term Lord was used to address a person who had the rank of a baron. So that is why he is called as Alfred Lord Tennyson. Now let me also give you an introduction to Loreena McKennitt. Loreena Isabel Irene McKennitt is a Canadian singer, multi-instrumentalist and composer. She was born in 1957 in the province of Manitoba, which is one of the three prairie provinces in central Canada. She began her music career by performing in a number of places including Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, before settling in Ontario. She is best known for producing world music albums that encompass both Celtic and Middle Eastern themes. Her career spans over 30 years to date, and she has made 8 studio albums, achieved 2 Grammy nominations, and multi-platinum record sales. Multi-platinum record sales means having sold 2 million or more copies of an album. Her career-defining albums were The Visit, The Mask and Mirror, and The Book of Secrets. These albums made her an international star. Some of her other popular music albums are Elemental, To Drive the Cold Winter Away, and Parallel Dreams. Now, it should be noted that it is this particular album, Parallel Dreams, which gave her her very first breakthrough. This album sold more than 40,000 copies within 4 months. So these are some of her popular albums. McKennitt went on a long break after the tragic death of her fiance in 1998, but returned to the studio in 2006 with the much acclaimed The Book of Secrets. Her song, The Mummer's Dance, was used in the television commercials and movie trailer for Ever After, a Cinderella story that came out in 1998, even though the song was not included in the soundtrack or the movie itself. It was just used in commercials as well as the movie trailer. She was also commissioned for other movies like Jade, Highlander 3, Disney's The Santa Claus, and also TV shows including Northern Exposure, Due South, and EZ Streets. It is said that McKennitt's lyrics have reflected her interest in the poetry of W.B. Yeats, William Blake, and Alfred Lord Tennyson. She was inspired by Celtic music of the late 1970s. She has stated in her biography provided in her official website that she was deeply influenced and inspired by the Celtic tradition, especially after taking part in an exhibition of Celtic artifacts in Venice in 1991. She learned about the geographic and historic spread of the Celts from the exhibition, and gradually she found herself drawn into the rich ancient tapestry of sounds and rhythms and stories. You might be wondering why I am talking about all these things, because it's probably because of this particular influence of the past traditions, especially of the Celtic artifacts, that made her to make a song out of the poem the Lady of Shallot by Alfred Lord Tennyson, as this particular poem too incorporates a tale from the medieval ages. So that's probably why she, made a song out of Alfred Lord Tennyson's ballad. Now, let me also tell you something about the ballad that we are going to discuss today. It's titled The Lady of Shallot. It was written in 1832 and published 10 years later. It was inspired by the 13th century short prose text Donna di Scalotta. It tells the tragic story of Elaine of Astolat, also known as the Lady of Shallot, who was a young noblewoman stranded in a tower up the river from Camelot. She falls deeply in love with Sir Lancelot. If you don't know who Sir Lancelot is, he was one of the greatest knights of the Round Table. The Knights of the Round Table were the knights belonging to the highest knightly order in King Arthur's court. King Arthur is a figure that appears frequently in many of the works which belong to the medieval ages. Now, what happens to the Lady of Shalott is that when Sir Lancelot does not return her love, she dies of grief and floats in a barge down the river to Camelot. So, this is a story that we trace in Donna di Scalotta, which is the story about, or which is the short prose text on Elaine of Astolat, also known as the Lady of Shallot. Tennyson wrote two versions of the poem. One was published in 1833 and it has 20 stanzas in it, and the second version was published in 1842, which has 19 stanzas. You might be wondering why it was revised by Tennyson. The Tennyson revised this particular version. The second poem had a different ending, and this ending, was designed in such a way that it matched the Victorian morals regarding gender norms and the act of suicide. And the poem that we will discuss today, or the ballad that we will discuss today, is the 1833 version, which has 20 stanzas. Let's begin the poem. It's a bit lengthy, so please do have the patience to listen to the entire video lesson. It has four parts. Let's begin with part one. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye that clothe the world and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many towered Camelot. The yellow-leaved water-lily, the green-sheathed daffodilly, tremble in the water chilly round about Shalott. So what I will do is I will give you a summarized version of each stanza, because since this poem is quite lengthy, to give you line by line analysis would be very difficult for me. So what I will do is I will give you a rough outline to each stanza. So what happens in the very first stanza is that you get a description of a river, and on either side of the river are long fields of barley and rye. Rye is a type of cereal grass. There is a road that passes through these long fields, and this road leads on to the town of Camelot, which is described as one with many towers. And as you travel, you see water lily in the river and also the daffodils by the field. And these things seem to, or the daffodils seem to surround the island of Shalott. So these are some of the details that you get from the very first stanza. Let's move on to the second stanza. Willows whiten, aspens shiver, the sunbeam showers break and quiver, in the stream that runneth ever by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. Four grey walls and four grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shallot. So the poet says that the island of Shalott inhabits several plants and trees, including willows and aspens. The rays of the sun seem to break upon the stream that runs by the island and which flows down to Camelot. From these lines, we kind of understand the location of the island. It's probably uphill from Camelot, as it is said that the stream that flows by the island flows down to Camelot, which was the town described in the first stanza. I hope you remember it. On the island, a woman known as the Lady of Shallot is imprisoned within a building made of four grey walls and four grey towers. Underneath the bearded barley, the reaper, reaping late and early, hears her ever chanting cheerily, like an angel singing clearly, o'er the stream of Camelot. Piling the sheaves in furrows airy, beneath the moon, the reaper weary, listening whispers, it is the fairy Lady of Shallot. In this part of the poem, the speaker says that the reaper working on the barley field late into the night as well as early in the morning hears her chanting cheerily. Cheerily means, singing, chanting cheerily means singing in a cheerful manner. And on hearing her sound, the reaper says, it is the fairy. And who is this fairy? The Lady of Shallot. The little isle is all enrailed with a rose fence and overtrailed with roses. By the marge unhailed, the shallop flitteth silken sailed, skimming down to Camelot. A pearl garland winds her head. She leaneth on a velvet bed, full royally apparelled, the Lady of Shallot. So we get further description regarding the island as well as the lady in this part. We are told that the little island is surrounded with a rose fence, which are blossomed with roses. You see a shallop. Shallop means a boat fitted with a silken sail. Shallop means a boat, and it is fitted with a silken sail on the stream that flows, and it is on top of it is on the stream that flows down to Camelot. A pearl garland is wound around the lady's head, and she leans down on a velvet bed. She seems to be clothed in royal dress. Now, who is clothed in a royal dress? The Lady of Shallot. Now we move on to the second part of the poem. No time hath she to sport and play, a charmed web she weaves alway. A curse is on her if she stay her weaving, either night or day, to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, therefore she weaveth steadily. Therefore no other care hath she, the Lady of Shallot. So this is that part of the poem where we get further details regarding why she is spending her life in the island. In the first stanza of the second part of the poem, the poet says that the Lady of Shallot has no time to waste as she weaves a charmed or magical web. We are told that she will be cursed if she stops her weaving night or day to look down to Camelot. And unfortunately, she does not even know what this curse would be. So she weaves steadily and not focusing on anything else. She lives with little joy or fear over the water running near. The sheep bell tinkles in her ear. Before her hangs a mirror clear, reflecting toward Camelot. And as the mazy web she whirls, she sees the surly village churls and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott. So the poet continues to say that as she weaves with little joy and fear, she hears the sound of the water running near the castle and also the tinkling sound of the sheep bells. A mirror hangs before her, and in this mirror she sees the town of Camelot. She sees the village people and the girls wearing red dresses passing onward towards Camelot. So all these sights she gets from the mirror that is before her. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or long-haired page in crimson clad, goes by to toward Camelot, and sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding two and two. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shallot. So from this stanza, we get to see through the eyes of the Lady of Shalott some of the people that pass by the island of Shalott to Camelot. Sometimes she sees a group of damsels glad or happy. Now damsels are unmarried women. Sometimes she sees an abbot. Abbot is a church official. And sometimes she sees a young shepherd with curly hairs or a page. Page means an attendant. So sometimes she also sees attendants dressed in crimson and with long hairs. So these are the people that she confronts through the mirror. She sees damsels or unmarried women. She sees church officials. She sees young shepherds with curly hairs and also attendants with long hairs. She at times also sees a pair of knights riding by, though she has no loyal knight of her own to court her or to love her. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights, for often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music came from Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead came two young lovers lately wed. I am half sick of shadows, said the Lady of Shallot. So this is the final stanza of the second part, and in it, the speaker says that even though the lady is bound inside the castle and feels solitary or lonely, she is happy in what she does as well as what she sees through the blue mirror. At times, she used to listen to the music of a funeral happening at Camelot, and at times, she used to see newly married couples who have come out to enjoy the moon at night. She is happy with all these sights and sounds, but she also conveys her frustration at the shadows of the world, which could mean that she is not able to experience all these sights and sounds by herself. It is only the reflections that she gets through the mirror. It is only through the mirror that she is able to experience all these things, and that's probably why she is frustrated, and that's why she says, "I'm half sick of shadows." Now, moving on to part three. A bow shot from her bower eaves, he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A red cross knight for ever kneeled to a lady in his shield, that sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. So it is only in this part of the poem that we come across the knight whom the lady loves and adores. The knight is none other than Sir Lancelot. The knight in brass armor comes riding through the fields of barley beside Shalott. The sun shines on his armor and makes it sparkle. The red cross, which is described in this part of the poem, must be the cross like symbol that the Arthurian knights used to have on their robe as well as on armor plates. And Sir Lancelot is someone who forever kneeled in front of her, meaning who was always, forever in love with this lady. That is what, we understand as of now, or at least that is what the Lady of Shalott thinks, that he is forever in love with her. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridle bells rang merrily as he rode down from Camelot, and from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rode his armour rung beside remote Shalott. So we get further descriptions of the knight riding on the horse in this part of the poem. As he rides, the gems on his horse's bridle. Bridle is the headgear for a horse, what you wear on a horse's head. So the gems on his horse's bridle glitter like a branch of stars or constellation of stars, and the bells on the bridle ring. The knight hangs a bugle from his baldric. Baldric is a wide belt used for carrying something, and what the knight carries is a bugle. and his armor makes ringing noises as he gallops alongside the remote island of Shalott. All in the blue unclouded weather, thick jewel shone the saddle leather, the helmet and the helmet feather, burned like one burning flame together, as he rode down from Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor, trailing light, moves over green Shalott. So in this stanza, the sky is described in the initial lines, and it is described as blue and unclouded, which means that we have a very clear sky. And the jewel on the saddle. Saddle is the seat for the rider of a horse. So the jewel on the saddle shone brightly in the sun. The rays of the sun were so intense that the helmet and the feather on the helmet seemed to burn as Sir Lancelot rode down from Camelot. The speaker also says that as he rode down the starry night, he seemed like a meteor with a beard and with a trailing light, which means that trailing light means the light that follows you. And this meteor seemed to move towards Shalott. His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed, on burnished hoofs his war horse strode, from underneath his helmet flowed his coal black curls as on he rode. As he rode down from Camelot, from the bank and from the river, he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tira lira, sang Sir Lancelot. From this stanza too, we continue to get physical descriptions of the knight. His forehead glows in the sunlight, and his horse trod on smooth and shiny hoofs. His black curly hair flows out from under his helmet as he rode down from Camelot. And as he passes by the river, his image flashes into the Lady of Shalot's mirror, and he sings out Tira Lira. Now, Tira Lira could probably be some song from the medieval age. I could not get a clear cut reference to this particular song. Let's just think that it is some song sung by the knight. She left the web, she left the loom, she made 3 paces through the room, she saw the water flower bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume, she looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. The curse is come upon me, cried the Lady of Shallot. So upon seeing and hearing the knight, what Lady of Shallot does is she stops weaving her web and she abandons her loom. Now, loom is the equipment that she used for weaving. So she abandons both the web and the loom. The web that she sews flies out from the loom and the mirror cracks. Now, this cracking of mirror is symbolic of something. It is symbolic of the fact that the curse has come upon her. It shows the arrival of her doom or death or destruction. And this is indicated by the line, the curse is come upon me. Let's move to part 4, which is a very final part of this ballad. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Outside the isle a shallow boat, beneath a willow lay afloat. Below the carven stern she rode, the Lady of Shallot. So what happens in this stanza is as the sky breaks out in rain and storm, the Lady of Shalott descends from her tower and finds a boat. She writes the words, the Lady of Shalott, below the stern. Stern is the rear part of a ship. So that is what you come across this stanza. A cloud-white crown of pearl she dight, all raimented in snowy white, that loosely flew, her swan in sight, clasped with one blinding diamond bright. Her wide eyes fixed on Camelot, though the squally east wind keenly blew, with folded arms serenely by the water stood the queenly Lady of Shalott. The speaker says that the Lady of Shalott has worn a crown of pearl and a snowy white type of dress, and this dress flew loosely in the wind. She then stands with her eyes fixed on Camelot. Probably she is waiting for the night. She stands there for a while in a queenly way, meaning like a queen waiting for her king. With a steady stony glance, like some bold seer in a trance, beholding all his own mischance, mute, with a glassy countenance, she looked down to Camelot. It was the closing of the day. She loosed the chain and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shallot. So the Lady of Shallot stands there on the island for a long time to see if her knight is coming. The poet describes her glance as something which is steady and stony, meaning unmoving. And she appears to be a seer or a prophet in a state of trance. Trance means in a half conscious or semi conscious state. It was as if she was a prophet and could behold or foresee her own mischance or misfortune. What she does at the end of the day is she cuts herself free from the chains that bound her to the castle, and she lay in the boat, and the boat gradually carried her far away, probably to the town of Camelot. As when to sailors while they roam by creeks and outfalls far from home, rising and dropping with the foam, from dying swans wild warblings come, blown shoreward, so to Camelot still as boat head wound along the billowy hills and fields among, they heard her chanting her death song, the Lady of Shallot. The poet says that when sailors, while they sail by the creeks, creeks means streams, and so when sailors sail by the creeks, which rises and drops with thick foam on top of it, they listen to dying swans that sings death songs. And for the sailors, it seemed like Lady of Shallot was chanting her death song. A long drawn carol, mournful holy, she chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her eyes were dark and holy, and her smooth face sharpened slowly, turned to toward Camelot. For ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside, singing in her song she died, the Lady of Shallot. It is in this stanza that we confront the Lady of Shallot's death. The speaker or the poet says that she sang or chanted a song that was mournful and at the same time holy. She chanted this song loudly as well as in a lowly manner, and she kept on singing until her death. By the end of the song, she died. The poet says that she turned her face to the toward Camelot or the town of Camelot, and before she reached the bank of the stream, she died. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a pale, pale corpse she floated by, dead cold, between the houses high, dead into towered Camelot. Knight and burgher, lord and dame, to the planked wharfage came. Below the stern they read her name, the Lady of Shallot. So we witness the dead body of Lady of Shallot in this stanza. It floats by under the tower and balcony of the buildings on the bank of the stream. Her face looked so pale and cold, and all the knights, lords, ladies, and common men came to the wharfage. Wharfage means a platform built on the bank of a stream. And why did they come? They came to see her. They crossed themselves, their stars they blessed, knight, minstrel, abbot, squire, and guest. There lay a parchment on her breast that puzzled more than all the rest. The well-fed wits at Camelot. The web was woven curiously, the charm is broken utterly. Draw near and fear not, this is I, the Lady of Shallot. So we have come to the final stanza of the poem. We witnessed her life, Lady of Shalot's life. We witnessed her death, and now we have come to the final scene of the entire story. So we have everyone gathered at the banks of the stream to see the dead body of Lady of Shallot. We have knights, minstrels, abbots, squires, and guests who are visiting the town of Camelot present amongst the crowd. They blessed their stars, probably for saving themselves from this kind of terrible death. The poet says that there was a parchment. Parchment means a skin of a deer or a sheep which has been prepared for writing. And on this parchment was written The web was woven curiously and the charm is broken. The line should mean that her curiosity for the knight, which distracted her, caused the charm to be broken, and it's probably her love for Sir Lancelot that made the charm to be broken. That is what she might probably want to convey. And she says, "You don't have to fear anymore. It is she, the Lady of Shallot." This is where the poem comes to an end. I hope you have an understanding regarding the story as well as the poem. Now, if any of you would like to watch the pop song by Loreena McKennitt, I have attached a link to watch the video in the description box. Please do watch the pop music. Thank you so much for being with me. I will see you in another video lesson.